This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Sometimes you hear about these discrete events, these data points, and they seem to be independent and not connected. But when you connect the dots and bring it all back to Donald Trump, it all makes sense. And that's just happened in the last several days. It starts with the reporting that Roger Stone, political operative, hatchet man, convicted felon who had a sentence commuted and pardoned by Donald Trump for lying during the Mueller investigation of Trump's involvement with Russia interference and an attempt to undermine Hillary Clinton's campaign. There's new reporting and a new recording, secretly, obviously, of Roger Stone in Fort Lauderdale in 2020, threatening to assassinate and take out Jerry Nadler and Eric Swalwell, two congresspeople on the House Judiciary Committee who were investigating the actual pardon of Roger Stone. I'm going to play that for you. And Roger Stone also being one of the people who came up with the Stop the Steal back in 2015 and 2016 that Donald Trump eventually used. So you got that mob-style threat by Roger Stone to assassinate members of Congress who were interfering with Donald Trump's ability to get reelected. Hold that thought. Now let's connect it over to and move the time machine back to Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn, Donald Trump has always been said by those around Donald Trump, closest to Donald Trump, that he was a student of the lawyer and political hatchet man at the time, Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn came to fame as a young lawyer working for Senator Joe McCarthy as they were investigating falsely destroying lives about communists in America. That was back in the 1950s. Roy Cohn then became a big hitter, a lawyer and political operative and lobbyist in New York, representing not only Donald Trump, but also representing members of various crime families, including the original Teflon Don, John Gotti, and others. He represented Roy Cohn, who represented Donald Trump, and Donald Trump kind of learned at the knee of. Also represented Carmine Galante, John Gotti, Fat Tony Salerno. Those kind of people were his clients. And that's where Donald Trump learned. As somebody once famously said, Donald Trump is a user of other users, and there was no bigger user than Roy Cohn. So you got Roy Cohn back in the 70s and 80s and 90s guiding a relatively young Donald Trump about how to make it in the world of New York business, represents all of these mobsters, of course, and teaches him the rough and tumble, sharp-elbowed practices that Donald Trump continues to use today. So you've got Roy Cohn and the mobster connections. You've got Roger Stone making mobster-like threats to take out and kill congresspeople. You've got the reporting from earlier in the year where Donald Trump himself has made mob-like threats against members and participants in the criminal justice system. Who can forget the now famous social media posting with Donald Trump holding a baseball bat, and the other side of the baseball bat, about to be brained in the photo, is Alvin Bragg, Manhattan District Attorney, who is prosecuting Donald Trump related to the Stormy Daniels hush money cover-up affair that goes to trial in March. We also know that just recently, Donald Trump also did social media postings threatening prosecutors around the country that are legitimately in good faith investigating him. Grand juries having indicted him, and now he's in the criminal justice system, saying that you come after me, I'll come after you. Another page ripped right out of the Mafia handbook. And now art imitating life, life imitating art, and life imitating life. You now have Sammy the Bull Gravano, who is a admitted mobster, member of the Gotti crime family, turned famously on the family and testified for the government, was put into some sort of witness protection, but came out of witness protection, and actually has a podcast, not on our network, called This Thing of Ours or something like that, where he, just sits in a chair and just ruminates about his life as a hitman. And there's a whole clip of him bragging about the fact that, not him, but others in his gang tried to shake down Donald Trump in the 1980s, about Trump Tower, trying to get him to pay bribe money and things like that, and Donald Trump wouldn't do it. Now, more recently, I'm going to play that clip in a minute. And then more recently, Sammy the Bull posted something on his social media. And as a character reference, Donald Trump said, "Thank you, Sammy the Bull, mobster, hitman who killed people. I agree with you. I'm not corruptible," or something like that. First, let me play some of these clips, and then I'm going to tie it all together at the end of the hot take. Let's first go back to Roger Stone's audio of him threatening to kill Jerry Nadler and Eric Swalwell. Now, in that one, it's at a small little restaurant that I know down in Florida in Fort Lauderdale on Las Olas Boulevard. Shout out to Cafe Europa, who was the apparent scene of this conversation. The other person that he was talking to was Sal Greco, a former New York City Police Department officer, an NYPD officer who was serving as a security guard for Roger Stone, went with Roger Stone to Jan 6th at the insurrection and served as his security detail. He's been separated from the New York Police Department, but this was his conversation with the Greco. It's a little bit difficult to hear, but let's play the clip.
Disturbing new audio of Trump associate Roger Stone discussing the assassination of Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell and Jerry Nadler with an NYPD cop weeks before the 2020 election.
Peace there, I'm going to go find Swalwell and get this over with. It's time to do it. Then we'll see how brave the rest of them are. Either Swalwell or Nadler has to die before the election. They need to get the message. And just not putting up with this again.
Okay, so you've got that, which Greco has not denied. He just said it's old political information that people shouldn't be that interested in. I don't know. If a person says they're going to assassinate people that his political enemies on the House Judiciary Committee, I don't care when I find out about it. That sounds very interesting. And hopefully it's interesting to the FBI, the Secret Service, and the Department of Justice. Because Roger Stone's pardon doesn't go as far, and we'll put that up on the screen, doesn't go as far as future bad acts or bad acts in the past that people didn't know about. So he wouldn't be pardoned for that particular activity. So you have that. Then you've got, let's move it forward. It's all in the same vein. Sammy the Bull Gravano. Here's a clip of him during his podcast a couple of years ago, in which he said that he had an interaction with Donald Trump, but that Donald Trump was very well protected, almost indicating to Sammy the Bull that Donald Trump himself was in his own version of the Mafia, well protected by a very hard-hitting and politically active father, Fred Trump. And, he went, he had his own money, and he had ex-FBI guys around him. In other words, this wasn't the guy to F with, to paraphrase Sammy the Bull Gravano. And they kind of went off and found other ways to disturb Donald Trump. But when they try to shake him down,
Donald J.
Some big
Trump.
construction jobs, union jobs. He's not on rehab, hard work. He's not in that type of work. And he's not in small construction. He's in major high-rise situations. It's very hard to fuck with Trump. His jobs are hundreds of millions of dollars, high-rise. And it's all union, straight up union. He has around him ex-FBI agents, a battery of them, 2, 3, 4, as security. It's very, very difficult to fuck with him. Eddie Garofalo, who got killed, I just talked about, did a demolition job. I believe it was for Trump Towers. I believe it was that job. This is one of the jobs that he was dumping that trash and construction debris and stuff in a hole. I think that's the job. But Trump ran around in some different circles all over the place. He was very wealthy, came from a very wealthy family. He's not self-made. His father was a heavyweight construction guy with a ton of fucking money and a ton of connections with the government, politicians, FBI. When you start getting people that connected, fucking with them is not a smart move. Try to shake them down is not a smart move. I gave him union problems a bunch of times to try to get into him. I wanted his people to want to bribe me to stop the problems. But I never got into that with him.
So it's a little bit different. Not that I would expect consistency, ethical consistency, or intellectual honesty by Sammy the Bull Gravano, but his recent social media tweet that Donald Trump's all excited about, because yes, he got the endorsement of the Mafia. I can't even believe these words are floating out of my mouth. But it's not exactly what Sammy the Bull said. In the tweet, in the social media posting, Sammy the Bull said, Donald Trump's incorruptible. I tried and I couldn't do it. Okay, that's not what the clip says. What the clip says that in the 1980s, 40 years ago, he couldn't get to Donald Trump because Donald Trump had his own mafia-like cocoon around him, led by his father, Fred Trump, ex-FBI agents, and his wealth. And they couldn't get to him. They couldn't F with him because of that. Not that he was incorruptible, just that he was impenetrable, if you will, the guard wall around him, right? And but they did find ways to F with him another way, to paraphrase Sammy the Bull, by just disturbing certain other aspects of the construction project around what he thought was Trump Tower. But to Donald Trump, endorsement of Sammy the Bull Gravano. I've been waiting for that for years. It's music to my ears. Let me post it. I am incorruptible. And how do you know that? Because the Mafia says it. All right. I mean, you guys can make your own assessment based on the information that I just did. But look at the world that I've just portrayed around Donald Trump. Starting with Roy Cohn, the political hatchet man and fixer and lawyer who was ultimately disgraced, disbarred, tax cheat. Does this sound familiar for Donald Trump's people? Who Donald Trump learned at the knee of. I mean, Roy Cohn is so influential on Donald Trump that in the middle of trying to convince his then Attorney General Jeff Sessions to stay and do the investigation or not related to the Russia interference in the election and trying to undermine Hillary Clinton, and Jeff Sessions famously backed out and appointed a special prosecutor in Mueller. When Donald Trump tried to get Don McGahn, his White House counsel, to go to Sessions to try to convince him to stay and not appoint a special counsel, and that failed, Donald Trump famously blurted out, "Where's my Roy Cohn?" Because he was mad at Don McGahn for not having been able to pull off keeping Sessions on the case, so to speak. So, Roy Cohen's inside of Donald Trump's head is very well documented. And that's why Donald Trump talks like a mobster about taking out somebody and braining somebody and I'll come and to get you and all this other behavior. Although, I lived in New York for a long time. And when all the old dons of all the 5 families in New York were prosecuted by the FBI and the Department of Justice and brought down under racketeering statutes, I don't remember any of them holding press conferences in the hallway or on the steps of the courthouse, certainly not social media, which predated them, attacking the justice system, the judges, the prosecutors, or their staff. They weren't that stupid. And by the way, most of them went to jail for a long, long time. Sammy the Bull only avoided jail because he testified, was a turncoat and a rat against the Mafia. This is the role model that Donald Trump holds up as the bastion of ethics and character that he wants to live by. So you've got Roy Cohn, and also, of course, representing a lot of members of the Mafia at the time, including John Gotti, the Teflon Don. And then you got Roger Stone. Roy Cohn died of AIDS, having hidden the fact that he was bisexual or gay for most of his life. and died ultimately of AIDS. You got Donald Trump sort of looking around for his next Roy Cohn, and it landed, the wheel landed on Roger Stone, who's very similar, by the way. He dresses ridiculous, flamboyantly, with weird bowler hats and three-piece suits with mixed matched fabrics and all sorts of. We'll put up some photos. And that became his Roy Cohn. And of course, you got this version, this Roy Cohn light, making threats in 2020 now against members of Congress to try to assassinate them. At the same time, you got, now bringing it full circle, Donald Trump crediting Sammy the Bull Gravano for standing up for him being a character reference. We're going to continue to follow what, if you hear them in their kind of discrete independence, you think are unconnected, weird data points. But I've just connected the dots and run it all through you here. Only on the MeidasTouch Network. On Legal AF, we do it, breaking it down at the intersection of law, politics, and justice every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then on hot takes like this one, about every hour. Only one place. Don't change that dial. It's the MeidasTouch Network on YouTube. Help them get the 2 million free subscribers with your thumbs and fingers. That's how you do it. And then you can pick up our Legal AF podcast wherever you get audio podcasts from, and of your choice, from Google, Spotify, or Apple and the like. So until my next hot take, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment on this one. Until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.